2020 has been a surprisingly good year for film, which is funny because it's been a fucking terrible year for just about everything else except maybe TV. No prerequisite, no looking at the honorable mentions, let's get right into it.
Oh, gorgeous slab of flesh.
Oh, it was nothing.
Oh, go on, my boy, shed a layer. We aren't formal in this house.
The film has a great eye to depict the circular toxic behaviours that can form in a relationship. Let's focus on the marriage of the real life author Shirley Jackson and her husband as they manipulate these other younger couple into their circle and to try to work their wickedness, so to speak. It really shows the parallels between the two relationships, the older and the younger one, as Jackson and her husband, Stanley Hyman, work to kind of imbue their influence and their desires onto these unsuspecting people. But what really makes this is the central performance by Elizabeth Moss. Moss has had a particularly great year this year with her more commercially successful role in The Invisible Man, which you'd also think is a really good film too. But she kind of imbues her with a sense of scattershot loss and inability to really communicate what her wants are, what her desires are. So she kind of passive aggressively pitches them onto everyone. The bizarre and kind of scattershot editing really puts you into this character's head, combined with Moss's performance, as well as the head of Alyssa Young, who plays our protagonist and our kind of entry point into this toxic space, into his great chemistry with Moss. This movie is designed to push your buttons and prod you onto the edge of sanity, but with its like sensuous distrust and intellectually fueled narcissism, they're really trying to find a sense of belonging. I just fucking loved it. Absolutely check out.
Most of the time, I've been told I'm a lonely rider. What in my life do I actually have to show for? Except for my kids.
This may go down, in my view, as one of the most enrapturing views of what it's like to live in Trump's America, with very little focus on the man outside of some clips on TV and stuff like that. This young woman is struggling to live her life and grow. The focus of this is the struggle of this young woman who, through recreational drug use, is trying to find her place in the world and raise her daughter while living with her mother. So it's kind of a three-time generational focus. One of the movie's strengths is that there is no central narrative. We're mostly just following this woman as she lives her life. She plays in the yard with her daughter. We focus on her daughter and we focus on her mother as well. And it's just about showing these moments of them driving in a car with this beautiful soundscape and wonderful use of lighting and cinematography to capture a moment of pure bliss while living under extreme poverty and struggling to make it in a mold. This movie's very sympathetic to our lead Betty, and while I can imagine some people may not find her that likable, she's clearly a very thoughtful and soulful person, trying to find a way to be happy and raise her children in this particular landscape, showing the delicate tightrope between her struggles with her boyfriend as well as her mother. With her mother, they live in this rather tight space together. It gives across the generational cramping up within poverty and pushing us together, and the general incapabilities within this framework. BAM! Powerfully scrappy and exceptionally captivating, it shows the necessity of escape and imagination, as well as getting across what the struggles of so many within this contemporary life. I really loved an experimental movie with no real plot or discernible narrative. Yeah, 2020 has been the strangest year. Jody Mack's film takes a look at the textile industry, but does so in this kind of captivating kaleidoscope-esque way of framing together and showing the interconnectivity of the world and our place within it. It's a film that says literally nothing, but it captivates so much and makes me think with its wonderful soundscape and ability to interconnect all these spare parts into something really powerful and profound, at least in my opinion. I haven't been moved by a non-narrative experimental kind of patchwork documentary since the Kotze trilogy, and that's a huge compliment, at least from my own perspective. It may not be obvious from the get-go what you're meant to take from this, but through a series of beautiful imagery and uses of even the Skype tone, which I thought was a pretty nice touch, you get an idea that it's not so much about what it wants to tell you, but where you want to take it with you. And I think that's all a great film should do. They should make you think of the world in a way that is escaping and a way that is rewarding by your own perspective within the framework of what you're seeing. And I think it does that really well. All films started with cinematography and editing, and this one captures both with a extreme confidence from its director to let her take you to where you need to go on this journey and to just shoot with beautiful kaleidoscope imagery and textile, pun intended, pungent visual references that really makes you think and emote along with what everything is going forward. Amazing, I thought this guy missed out on being a YouTube sensation, and this was before they brought out my Neonopolis. Based on a series of interviews and other footage that was shot in the early 90s on video camera and eventually stored until now. It focuses on the life of Aidan Hockey, who's better known as El Duce. He was a member of the Mentors, who were known for kind of deliberately confrontational and provocative and very controversial lyrics and actions on the stage. He was a shock meddler. He found other success as well in the 90s daytime circuit, which he appeared very frequently to shock and offend everyone on the stage. This film kind of delves deeper into that and shows behind all this bravado is a very broken individual who cannot really call out for help because nobody really takes him seriously because of his whole shtick. It reveals a rather broken man, a perpetual alcoholic who can't really get a good grasp on his life. So all he does is generate provocation and annoyance and deliberate misharm without going too far and violent. And again, yeah, he feels very similar to what YouTube trolls became. And this isn't really lost on the director, and he makes a deliberate comparison, hence I brought up Yiannopoulos, between El Duce's actions and how they influence this kind of shock humor and provocateur kind of ways of getting under people's skins to get their attention, which has led to very positive effects. It's an excellent character study of a rather fascinating guy. And I mean, I don't think I would have really liked him if he was alive right now, but getting this kind of depth and personality, it really makes you not sympathize or forgive him for the shit he's pulled and said on stage, but it makes you understand who he was and why he led the life he did, as well as the socio-political implications of his actions that happened well down the line after he died. Very thought-provoking, and I love the kind of shot in video style as well. I thought this was shot in VHS, and that kind of old school murky feeling it gets. It really suits the tone of this, and it's really cool to watch.
To the birds and the breeze on the shoreline low.
This one's an absolute blast, and I really enjoyed watching it. It's mostly dialogue-free comedy following this man played by Kieran Hines, who witnesses a crime and he goes on the run from people who are pursuing him. He goes through this beautiful French countryside and this banged-up Fort Fiat with wonderful sense of texture and life through the cinematography. It looks gorgeous, and it really hits with the madcap capers that this individual finds himself in. Absolutely shows the universality of slapstick like Chaplin or Buster Keaton, and really shown through Kieran Hines, who is so goddamn lovable in this that you just can't help but be compelled through the misadventures he finds himself in. It's really fucking sweet and endearing. And to be honest with the year everyone's having, it's such a great escape to just, jump into a Fort Fiat and just drive through the countryside. It's not really something we can do that much anymore for obvious reasons, but it really made me feel alive and vibrant. It was exactly what I needed. The very brief time Ireland opened up and I saw this in cinemas. It's got such a humanistic quality of it, of people coming together, having a good time, really celebrating life and humanity in all its best forms. I mean, it's just Mr. Bean meets French farce, and I couldn't have asked for anything better to pick me up at this time.
Well, I'm gonna die anyway.
I mean, not here. I mean, not on my watch.
Right. But I'm definitely gonna die tomorrow.
So we go from the antithesis of COVID to one that feels just way too right in this current point in time, and I fucking loved it. This one just captures anxiety in a way I've never really seen before, and I really admire it for that. It's got a wonderful sense of building and tone. It actually took me a while to get into it. I wasn't really sure what to expect of it at the opening, but as soon as I got the rhythm of this film and what it's trying to do, I was sucked in with these characters and a situation where fear just feels like a virus, and anxiety feels like you're affecting everyone around you. It's wonderful storytelling. And I mean, it's not extremely relevant to what's happening right now, it kind of feels like it, but it really gets this idea of how all-encompassing anxiety feels and what it's like to be like having this virus that seeps into you and controls every aspect of your life, and the paranoia and the uncertainties. It's wonderfully told. It's such a visually arresting film too. It really lines up the shots and gets across the wild fears of how people are treating you and how you annoy them. But it just shows the all-encompassing anguish of living with mental illness and how it can affect your life in such a way that it dictates your actions of you and those around you. It's cruel, but also pretty casual, and it really gets across the dark absurdity to live like this. It's just expertly directed by Amy Simon. It's definitely a name I'm going to want to check out from now on. Her grasp on these concepts of this internalized struggle is excellent, and her use of visualization to get this across really makes her someone I want to check out more of. Its grasp on worry and collective trauma is mesmerizing, and it really hits across that idea that horror should make you realize fears about yourself you never knew you had. But this one feels extremely palpable because there are some days where it really does feel like you're just going to die tomorrow. So yeah, good movie. Fun, light Saturday entertainment for everyone.
Entre tu cuerpo y el mío hay universos que debes ver. Entre tu cuerpo y...
It's an intense, sensuous, beautiful character study of a young woman who is struggling to get around her tempestuous relationship with her much older husband as she battles for custody of their son. There's a visually arresting quality to how this character's life plays out. It's very physical. There's a lot of physicality there, down to the point where she's a dancer and her husband's actually her choreographer. It explores the contemporary sense of being of how people of this journey, of this age group, try to carve an existence out for themselves, with our lead finding fairs, rambunctious nights out, and an anarchical sense of fire. Cannot overemphasize how great the production is. The editing, the soundtrack, just everything coming together in this pulsating, electrified manner. It's wonderful. Paolo Reina does a great control of the camera, and he really knows how to use it to get across his stories. It is very arresting, very encapsulating way that draws you in. This is consistent throughout his work, but it's honed to perfection here. Fantastic film, gets under your skin in just the best way possible. Daniel thought he'd get away with this without turning the light on. Daniel was wrong.
Дитина там перших 3-4.
Man, the world is really terrifying, isn't it? The documentary focuses on two children as they go to a summer camp. The twist here is that it's a camp run by Ukrainian nationalists in the middle of the war, and its focus is on kind of strengthening the wartime preparation for these children, as well as devoting an unquestionable loyalty and devotion to one's country. Without getting too politically loaded here, there's a certain ideology you can see being formed right here. And to see it happening through children is kind of stomach churning for me. But the filmmakers are smart enough to leave an objective lens where you make up your own mind but how you're supposed to feel about what you are seeing. And this may be for necessity purposes because this is a documentary and they needed access to the camps. And if they had really shown upfront what their intentions with the movie is, it may not have happened. At the same time, it works in the film's advantage because it lets you decide what's right or what's wrong about what you are seeing in these proceedings. It's not a viewpoint really offered much in film that take this kind of political landscape and examine it because it's focused on children. It also shows them just being kids, being rambunctious and silly and wild and stuff. We're smart enough to focus on these two kids in particular because it gives the film a sense of grounding as well as showing the effects of the camp from both their perspectives in both different ways. And I will say, without giving away too much, it does affect them both very differently, and it makes it a lot more compelling and interesting to watch. It may not be the most fun film going experience, but it's important and it's the perfect way of getting across these ideas and these concepts. It's great documentary filmmaking. It's perfectly presented and edited, and it really sticks with you and embeds right in the back of your brain for a long, long time after you finish watching it.
2-3 jours.
Bonjour, Monsieur Brémond.
Bonjour.
Alors, comme ça, tu ne vends plus l'appartement? Monsieur Brémond vient de me dire que tu n'étais plus intéressé. C'est ce que vous a dit, non? Qu'elle n'est plus intéressée.
Oui, mais...
T'as rien dit à tes enfants, non? T'as pas...
This is an absolutely powerful and emotionally resonant story about these two old women who live close together but are a couple, and they're hiding this from their families. I love the dual nature of it and how the turn in the story comes really unexpectedly, and I really like how that focus shifts, feels very natural, as well as really shocking and out of nowhere. But it's also just seeing these two together. There's just this wonderful warmth and familiarity between these two old couple just being together, supporting each other, having that wonderful sense of needing each other in a way, but also they're very distinctive and fun characters on their own with their own lives and baggage that you feel come out. They just feel like an old couple. They feel very resonant, and it's just a wonderful chemistry and the familiar rapport they have with each other. It's fantastically acted, at least. I hate the kind of issue movies that LGBTQ plus films can really be focused in on because it kind of grasps what stories you can tell with LGBTQ plus people in a very familiar cramped box. Not that they're not unimportant, but they're very overfilling, and it does tend to get a bit annoying. But this one feels very different to me, and it's a focus on something you really wouldn't think about, especially for kind of older couples who could not come out at the time they came together, and explores that very tentatively. It brings a lot of sincere pathos and stakes into the story as it moves forward, and while I felt the conflict that kind of drives the finale is a little bit tacked on, it does lead to one of the most beautiful final shots of any movie I've seen all year. It's a warm, bright, heartwarming, a bittersweet film that kind of brightened up my cold, dead heart.
And said, that little boy there, he's the little boy that I'm going to use to save Irish music and take it to greater popularity than it's ever had before.
Why would God do that?
Because God is Irish.
Summer evening, drunk to hell, I sat there nearly lifeless. This is one of the best rag to riches, so to speak, documentaries about a musician or artist I have ever watched. And I could be biased here because I really love the quotes, but there's kind of madcap energy and kind of zestfulness to how this is presented that really captures the larger than life and unforgettable personality that Shane MacGowan is, and somewhat continues to be even with his current kind of health status. It really gives you a sense of what shaped this man from his culturally imbued Irish roots of being fed, drinking fags, to just the punk rock aesthetic he took on and the rebellious attitude he was formed in, and taking both these and marrying them together along with a lot of other cultural figures, which, I mean, you watch the film to get that context, and these elements have come together for this Irish soaked punk rebellious quasi trad band that made this man into the icon he is. There's just great production values here. I love the animations that kind of come at the beginning and really kind of involve you into the story, but they kind of dissipate a little over time as we make more time for Shane to talk to his family and friends, as well as just being himself. You just get enraptured by him by the point. Also, it does make up for the fact there probably isn't a lot of footage from his youth, but that's another story. It helps the film kind of build a tone and really compels you throughout your watching of it. It knows when to slow down and knows when to speed up to tell hilarious stories, including one involving a hotel stay, which I will not spoil here, just watch the movie. It's truly a celebration of this one man and his obstinate, boozing, anarchical, wild ass Irish spirit. So I don't really think it needed the subtitles. I had a harder time understanding depth than I did Shane McGowan.
Do you know a girl with long red hair?
What'd you just say?
A young woman goes to Cornwall with her long-term boyfriend, and when they get there, starts becoming obsessed with the idea that he is cheating on her, and it kind of rolls on from there. I love the direction the story takes, not just the narrative direction, but also the style of it, of being like a horror film with this kind of low resonant tones, creepy imagery, and just this pungent atmosphere of something not quite right going on here. It's a character study, but a young woman who realizes that the life she thought she had to be living wasn't what was really satisfying her and fulfilling her, and realize there's more to it than just sticking to this, and discovering who she is and what she needs to do to get to a better understanding of herself and her life moving forward. The acting is great, the images really stick with you and bring you through the story in a wonderfully gripping manner. I love the color palette of it, even though the movie is mostly set in kind of low, dark hues. It really brings out the accentuating versatility of this filmmaking and the life this girl is leading compared to the life she could have. There's a lot more going on to this than you realize just initially looking at a trailer or just the description of it. It really shows you the horrors of heteronormativity and Cornwall, one of the biggest surprises of this year.
The Violence Voyager. They began their attack on mankind last summer. In 3 days, they had killed 80% of the human population.
This movie absolutely slaps something fierce. And at the previous entry was something I was not expecting to love as much as I did. This one, I got exactly what I was expecting, and even then I was not prepared for the absolute roller coaster I was about to be put on. This is an animation, my friends. Oh no, this is Gekamation. Taking these kind of cardboard cutouts and telling the story on still images, but also giving realistic particles like spit and blood to really soak in the weird, surrealist atmosphere, whatever it's getting across. I would describe the plot, but it's difficult to do so. It kind of takes on this kind of childlike adventure and really makes you buy into it with the way the film is framed. But then it's called Violence Voyager. It goes into kind of creepy, disturbing shit involving body horror and all this wonderful sorts of crap that really gets me excited when seeing a film. I really enjoyed the crazy turns and the creepy as hell images and creative choices they take through this animation stuff. And like the characters are very stock and the acting isn't that great. Also, some of the voices don't really fit the characters they're playing. But that kind of works as well towards creating this very off-kilter, strange kind of atmosphere and leading you into this nightmare-fueled body horror experience where honestly it just sometimes feels like a waking dream, and I fucking love it. I mean, I think you should just, when watching it, abandon your idea of how a movie should act and how it should feel, and you can just get really sucked up into it, and I love it, and it works. And it's from this guy, Uchija. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right, but I know for sure I'm going to have to check out his entire catalogue of films like yesterday. It's bizarre and uncomfortable, and that's before you get to the horror. Absolute hell of a ride.
Nausea, fevers. DuPont wanted to know why. So they laced cigarettes with Teflon. They told a group of their workers, hey, smoke these. DuPonters did as they were told. Almost all those men were hospitalized.
This movie looks at the life of Robert Billet, a former corporate lawyer whose life is completely turned upside down when he's asked to look into the impurities of one DuPont, who are probably most famous for creating the product Teflon. This film is kind of one of the more conventionally appealing of the films we've talked about this so far. It's a courtroom drama. It has a lot of twists and turns to keep you interested. Mark Ruffalo is amazing. It's probably his best performance. He really captures this wonderful embodiment of the everyday man, but does it through this slick, high-powered lawyer who has his world flipped upside down. What makes this film so effective and how good it is through is showing you how far deep this goes and how difficult it is to do the right thing. Let me get this across. What DuPont are doing is incredibly evil, but it shows that that doesn't really matter, because when you bring this into court with a huge, powerful corporation that's a huge employer in the area in particular, it really goes to show how much of a struggle it is to do the right thing and sometimes how thankless it can be. It's really depressing. None of this comes easy, and with this dark espionage like mood to it and how everything just kind of falls flat on this character and the people around him, it almost makes you question how much of this is really worth it. It's a bold and defiant story about heroism and the real world difficulty in fighting a task that's Goliath-like in form. I love the tenacity and inability to sugarcoat what this can do, what this can come across. Absolutely wonderful filmmaking.
Não volto para trás. Isso era ensinar o caminho ao diabo.
Whew, baby, is this painfully relevant in lockdown times? Rita Azevedo Gomez is a Portuguese filmmaker who I didn't actually know anything about until I described a movie last year. P.S. You should describe the movies. The movie's great. And more is a pity for me because I've become utterly fascinated by her work, and this film is my personal favourite of the output of hers I've seen. The story follows the wife of an Italian nobleman. She is Portuguese, hence the title. And the kind of myth that comes around her because of her being stuck in the house for 11 years as she tries to grasp on some form of autonomy while waiting for her husband to come back from war. There's actually a lot of intriguing stuff that happens throughout the runtime, a lot of involving bishops. But this woman's embittered complacencies and willingness to lash out and make something of her own, it's extremely palpable and, of course, relatable right now. There's some wonderful costume work and production here, really puts you into the time period and these bullshit social mores, really giving you the sense of the class system here that's very regional as well as traditionally kind of wealth-based. I love the use of the servants and the peasantry here who almost feel as much as characters as the leaders, sometimes more, because you see the kind of mystique around her through them a lot of the time, and they're just very compelling, fun characters in their own right. An excellent ballet of class dynamics, sexual frustration, and just, the push of the social strata and making it pull towards you. One of the best costume dramas I've seen in quite a while.
Fine. I'll be your boyfriend.
Pretend boyfriend.
Pretend real boyfriend.
And it's just till school is over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
Or longer. No.
Another one with a conventional appeal, another LGBTQ film, and it's actually been a really good year for queer cinema in general. This one kind of deals with a really important aspect that isn't talked about that much in queer cinema: solidarity in 1990s Ireland. Well, I bitched about LGBTQ messaging a while back, and this one kind of falls into the same kind of buzz. What has this going for it is that it's a coming of age story as well as a coming out story. And it's really set in the backdrop of a rather recent history in my country. And I think about it like the homophobia in Ireland, like same-sex acts were only criminalised 2 years after the story takes place. And that was during my own lifetime. I was 5 when this movie takes place. I was 3 when it was criminalised. It's weird to think about, honestly. But again, it's a rather uncomfortable reality we have to deal with. This is probably one of my favourite movie duos of the year. Eddie and Amber have such a really warm friendship, and they lift each other up in only a way that people who are outcast in society can really do so, even though none of them in the film know that they're both gay, even though they do suspect it because, it's teenagers. They both have smart and well-defined personalities, and the film is actually not afraid to make them unlikable at points, especially Eddie. And I love the journey that both of them go on. They both end up in different places, and it makes sense to the narrative that's playing out, and I really love it. It really captures that sense of mid-90s Ireland and kind of the slagging you get and the way the school system is set up and the very patriarchal Catholic influence that is still here, but way more prevalent 20 years ago. And while, yes, things have gotten better in 2021, we've still a long way to go. And again, recent news about the Catholic Church as I'm recording this, it really makes you question how much influence they should still have, but that's This is not a video to talk about that. I loved running to Dublin and just having a night out and that want to escape. It's got really great subtleties and it's really warm and sweet, but also funny in places. Very funny as well. It's just a great feel-good film that makes you just enjoy life no matter what bullshit expectations society throws on you. Lovable and impactful. Watch it for days.
Great. Thank you for asking how I'm doing. First person today.
Anybody want a drink, a shot, tell a story?
You're making me realize I haven't smelled that smell in a long time.
Ever hung out in a bar, at a pub? This is hanging out in a bar. This is it. I think it's hard to get across what exactly social realism means in film. Even in documentaries, there's a sense of artificiality about what they're putting across. But this, I'm there. I'm smelling the pungent smell of pub. I'm talking to the merry, delightfully strange locals. I'm in this setting, and this movie really knows how to drag you in through its presentation. What a perfect moment in time to get across the dying industry, the cell-phone pub. As we look at a bar in Las Vegas, it's their final day and they're going to close to foreclosure. Now, this isn't a documentary, it's a docudrama, but you see the people go in and out, and most of them are not actors, and you get the sense of who they are and what stories they have to tell, for better or for worse. It's a great exploration of a moment in time, maybe long gone, as people came in and relaxed and shared their worries, their anxieties, their accomplishments, their dreams, and their bizarre-ass stories in just this relaxed, very calm down atmosphere that you don't really get in chain pubs in the same way, at least from my own experience anyway. The old man pubs were the places to go, really. It's not entirely uplifting, but you really get a sense of comfort and desire to sit with these people and shoot the shit and just keep going on well into the night. It's just a massive mood piece that can switch on a dime and turn to where it needs to go. It's just pure extravagance on a human level, and I toast it all the way up until dawn.
This is civil.
Jesus Hate was a spellbinding, heartbreaking watch. A story about a woman who has campaigned to free her husband from jail, who's facing a 60-year life sentence without parole for an armed robbery attempt. It really cuts into the last time, not just for him, but for his family, and as they fight against a system that is uncaring and sees you on a different plane because of your race. Sybil Fox Richardson is just a compelling force here. Her tenacity and her willingness to cut through the bullshit is really inspiring and really makes you feel compelled to watch her and root for her as she tries to free her husband. But also it just gets across the dreariness and how tired she is, because all they got is time. I love the way they'll cut from one portion of their lives to another through a lot of series of flashbacks and stuff. Well, scenes that shot before the documentary. It's really surreal to see the kids as they grow up. They just kind of sprout in age, and it really gets across the sense of lost time they have, how lost everything was while he was rotting in jail. It's depressing. The husband himself is actually not in a lot of the contemporary scenes, which again there's a practicality reason for that, but it shows how much he is missing from his own story. He can't participate in it and be there while his wife and his kids try so hard to get the attention of people to try to commute a sentence. I don't think it ignores his crimes or the hurt he has caused, but the disproportionate amount in his sentence, plus the blasé attitude of everyone around in the system, it shows the kind of injustice of it on a very day-to-day life in America. There's a great scene where she gets off the phone and just breaks down and starts, just unleashing her frustration at this entire situation. It's compelling stuff, but it's so heartbreaking. It's a powerful story that's gripping and emotionally complex, and it leads to such a satisfying conclusion. Just really happy I saw this story. Hope more people follow suit.
They got nothing. They don't got cars. They don't got. And I'm watching this, and I'm like, what the are these guys wearing? Look, it's on the Torah there. It's everywhere, right? Just where do these guys get precious black opals? That's what.
The Safdie brothers are filmmakers I've talked about before. I mentioned their film Heaven Knows What in my overlooked 2010s list. What makes them so compelling, I think, is that they get really gripping scenarios from unexpected places. One of their strengths, at least I think, is to create tension from unexpected areas for characters you surprisingly care about. The leads in Heaven Knows What are destructive and toxic people, but they genuinely love each other and it really compels you to them. The lead in Good Time is this slimy, burnout, bank robbing guy who does all this because he genuinely cares about his brother. And in Uncut Gems, it makes you care a lot about an Adam Sandler character. Yep. Everyone praises Sandler in this role already, and I just can't emphasize how much you root for Howard Ratman, despite the fact that he's just the biggest scumbag. But like, he's so doggedly determined, and also a massive doofus who keeps him running into these situations. There's something so sympathetic about him to the point where you really want him to succeed, and it's surprising considering. And yeah, Adam Sandler's just so good here. I don't have to stress that it's been talked about a lot. I love the way these guys use their soundscape and editing to create this pulsating sense of dread in their scenes, and it just really enraptures you as you're going through their stories. I've never realized how much of a shit I could give about a basketball game. These are two filmmakers and an actor who are perfectly married together after doing top tier work out of their careers. And this brings out a moody and really absorbing thriller that's entirely motivated by character. And sure, what more can you ask for? I miss Pedro Costa's Horse Money, which this film is a quasi spin-off of, and it's me doing me a great disservice because this film is amazing. It's incredible to me that Vitalini Varela, which is her real name, and this is quasi kind of based on her life. She's a non-professional actor, and she just has this quiet, powerful energy when she dominates the screen and just gets across this great sense of melancholy while also controlling your focus whenever she's around. It's just such a perfect poetry of misery and this rough aesthetic, getting across this idea of people struggling to make for a better life after immigrating with Costa's really wonderful direction. There's so much stillness in this film, but every frame tells a story. I love these deep existential conversations she gets in with the priest who buries her husband, someone she recognizes from her hometown. I like the other people surrounding her just kind of lost in their own sense of journeys and where they want to go with their lives. The kind of poetry of the ugliness is really well contrasted with the flashbacks to Varela's life 40 years prior to this, with her husband building a house, where you see a less jaded human being who has more going for it when it wasn't randomly put on hold when he leaves. Noticing a theme of being trapped in your lives at a point, which seemed to resonate with me a lot this year, by the way. It's a powerful story of the immigrant, of what they leave behind and what they need to move forward, and I would think more movies could bear to show a lot more of their weight.
What was it like? It's kind of whatever. Were they nice? Nice enough.
Just gals being pals, being mischievous and skiving off work and going on a big adventure to get one them an abortion. Hoo boy! There's a lot that can be said about being a young woman nowadays, and this one captures the accident of pregnancy, probably one of the scariest times someone of this age, at character 17, that she can go through. And I just love the way the camera just kind of glides effortlessly through her life as you see the experience from her perspective, and you're not quite sure how she got into this predicament, which is important. Both these two girls seem to be very different in personalities, but they contrast very well and they have each other's backs. And not always. I think there's that sense of solidarity that sometimes can always be tested. And I don't think this movie's trying to be cynical or anything. It's capturing the kind of everyday situation of being a teenage girl caught in a situation surrounded by men, a lot of them in kind of scary, confrontational ways that make you extremely uncomfortable. Yeah. Jesus, tap dancing Christ. I do not think my heart was in my mouth quite as much as it was in the scene in the clinic. I don't think the ending of Uncut Gems compelled me and made me as tense as this did. How vulnerable these two are and how much they are confronted by men throughout the film. And this is set up pretty early on in the opening. It's palpable. Eliza Hittman's ability to press this much with very little dialogue, it's really tough to watch, and it's great filmmaking all around. I love how badly this movie made me feel so much anxiety, because if some heavy set white bloke from Ireland can feel this much sense of dread just going on this kind of journey, how do American teenage girls feel? I would not know. Empathy through filmmaking in the best sense.
Right. I'm not sure what happened there.
Sorry, who?
Okay, let me check on that. I'll get back to you.
She says she starts today.
Hey. There's a girl waiting at reception. She says that she's supposed to start here today.
Working here with us? Where's she from?
Oh boy, another minimalist film about how shitty men are. And this one goes the extra mile. Not only is it set nearly primarily in this one office, but also goes into the details and is reflective of a rather recent Hollywood sex scandal that would probably be on a lot of people's minds at this current point. It is another film that exemplifies how difficult it can be to do the right thing, because it just falls straight on your fucking face right there and then sometimes. Except this one, it's stuck in this really confined space, so you feel all the tension and all the anxiety of this woman as she did the right thing and she is facing severe consequences for that oversight. Isn't it wonderful? And again, like a corporate greed thing, the problem with dealing with sexual misconduct is that it just costs too much to deal with in a serious manner. The absolute level of dread I felt throughout this entire thing, I was crawling out of my skin. I can't imagine this is the most entertaining film to watch, but god damn did it put me in that moment. It kind of speaks to Julia Garner's acting, that this taciturn, quiet person can really make you, compel you to be in her sense of dread, and that's also combined with Kitty Green's wonderful depth of camera to capture this claustrophobic feel as she barely is unable to escape this office. It leads to a final shot that feels very relieving, and not relieving the way, oh thank god that film's over, as in I think it's intentionally there to make you feel the weight is off her shoulders, because now she is out of the situation, at least until early in the morning. I love the ways that the shitty co-workers and our colleagues just kind of wave around in a complicity because this really shitty predatory person is signing their checks, and they just kind of go along with it because they know better. The fact that the boss is never seen, it creates this great sense of omnipresence, because everything around this film is surrounding him, yet you never see him. It just shows the insane amount of power these people have, that they don't have to be in the room and you feel their presence regardless. It's rather bleak. Also, it just really captures how shitty it can be to work in an office. I think everybody has had the phone call in this movie, and if you haven't, you just haven't working in call centers work that much, because trust me, it's exactly how it feels, and you just want to cry and you die a little inside, and I'm smiling through the pain right now. Yeah. Good movie, honestly. You should go see it, even if you think it'll make you really uncomfortable and not be really enjoyable, because these films are important and they need our support. Sadly, they go overlooked, and you should see it. It's good. It's really good. It's my second choice favorite film of the year. As for my first, yeah, I wish it wasn't as predictable, but I am.
Maybe our society lacks a certain kindness, a certain willingness to take in the struggles of others struggling with issues.
Charlie Kaufman, man, he's one of my favorite writers and now directors, and like anytime he makes something, anytime something of his gets released, I get excited. I can't wait to go see it. What's funny though is that he has a very similar style to a lot of his films in terms of what his focus is. He's a very personable writer and this kind of sad sack person who finds escape in this woman or this passion of his, and then eventually it gets fucked over by him and he faces the existential dread of being alive. He's a very cheery dude. Yet he plays it in a way that always makes me think about it from another angle and thinks about these worries and these anxieties in an entirely new and different perspective. And I have to admire him, because that could be easily very repetitive, because this guy just is a less creepy, more avant-garde Woody Allen. but his movies never feel repetitive to me, and that's what I really admire about it. And he's more self-aware as well. Turning the horrors of being open with someone into an actual horror story until it's not in a really depressing matter, it's very him. Really works for his style. I love everything. The score, the framing, just how detailed everything in the house is, and it just brings out the best of everything going on. The shit weird plot directions is constantly goes and making me question exactly where I'm going and also my own sanity at some point. Dude, wonderful lighting in the nighttime scenes that they're driving through, and the conversations about media and the Jabba Zemeckis actually having a thematic purpose and coming back around by the time the film finishes. It's great. It's wonderfully clever writing. I just love how gung-ho the cast are as well. I don't think Tony Collette and David Toulis actually know what the hell is going on, but god damn are they just compelled to do whatever. Just throw a situation at them, and David Toulis and Tony Collette will just be like, yeah, sure, why not? This is such a wonderful cry for help and trying to understand oneself. It doesn't really have a sense of wraparound until you get to the very end of it. And not a lot of people are going to get this. It only took me a while to think about, to come to terms with what exactly it's trying to say. But great art makes you think, and yeah, I'm thinking of ending things is great art. No one can really capture suffering just being in your brain or just being alive, conscious, aware of all the idiosyncrasies about your person, quite like Kaufman can, and I salute him for that. The writer and director of my favorite film of everybody's favorite year. Intense, sensuous, and beautiful character study of a young woman trying to struggle with the dynamics of